Hello everyone, welcome back to Good Taste Kitchen. My name is Mikaylin and I am your private chef. Today we are making the most delicious, buttery and flaky Jamaican patty. My focus in this kitchen is to show you how you can maximize nutrition and flavor, emphasizing on scratch methods. So let's get started. Okay, you guys, so first we're going to be starting with the actual dough for the pastries, for the filling to go inside of. What I have here is 7.5 cups of flour. I have a cup of water. I have a tablespoon of salt, a tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of ground turmeric, 1 tablespoon of ground curry. And I also have here 2 sticks of butter. What we're going to be doing is making the dough first, and then we're going to be putting that in the refrigerator to chill and rest. And while that's resting, we'll go ahead and get the filling started. So starting with the pastry dough, go ahead. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our flour. I have my sifter here. I also have a mixing bowl. I'm just going to sift that quickly into here. You want to make sure you sift just so that everything is evenly incorporated. You don't get any lumps or anything that doesn't mix well. Because again, we're going to ultimately end up kneading dough. You want to use everything. Okay, next I'm gonna add in the sugar, salt, then I'm gonna add in our spices, turmeric and curry. Now, if you've never made or even worked with turmeric or curry or any of these spices, just a warning, they will stain your hands just a little bit depending on how deep you're working with them. Nothing that a quick wash won't take care of, even with the counters, so don't worry about that. Next, we're going to go in and grate the butter. 2 sticks of butter. I have here just a small grater. Grating the butter is going to help and ensure that everything is incorporated evenly, and it really reduces the amount of time that you have to knead everything. Looking at that, see the butter. Oh. The butter does not have to be soft. In fact, you don't want it to be soft, just because the warmth, your body heat from your hands is going to warm it up. And so you don't want it sliding off everywhere. When it comes down to it, you don't want to hurt your fingers, so just pop a little bit of butter back in the bowl. No butter left behind, so get as much as you can into the bowl. Don't worry about washing your hands just because it's about to get messy. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and combine everything together. You want to squeeze that butter into the flour to make sure that it separates. All right, so once it's pretty much distributed, as you can see, it's kind of flaky. It's mealy, it's very mealy. The butter's spread around, everything's mixed together. Next, we're gonna go in and add the water. The water is gonna help and bring everything together. You might not need it all, so just maybe do half at first, because you don't want a super wet dough. Mix that in. then you'll start to see everything forming together. Gonna go in with the rest of the water. And as you see, it becomes hydrated, everything becomes hydrated. That yellow color will start to come out from the turmeric and the curry. Okay, so this is what we have now. It's more formed together, but we need to go ahead and get this kneaded. So we're gonna plop this onto the counter and start rolling and kneading this dough out. Okay, so I have a little bit of flour here. I'm just gonna sprinkle this. Just gonna dust the countertop. You just dust it, get it spread it around just so it's easier for us to work this dough. Spread everything out. If it's stuck to your hand, you can put a little bit on your hand and just start working the dough. Everything will come together. The dough should be pillowy soft when you're done kneading it. Okay, so what we want is for any butter chunks to be dissolved. We don't want them to be seen. We want a yellow dough. We want to be able to see the spices. We don't want it overly wet. We want it soft. Okay, you don't want to overwork your dough, then it'll come out too tough. So I'm gonna knead it into a dough ball. A little more flour there. And dry anything else. Okay, and this is what we have after kneading that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to just set this back in our bowl that we mixed everything in. Just set it in the bowl and put it into the refrigerator. You want to put something over top. I'm going to use some plastic wrap and just put it over top just so it doesn't form a cast, and let this rest for about 15 minutes. It's not going to take long at all. We're going to get to the filling next. All right, into the fridge we go. Okay, you guys, so our pastry dough for our Jamaican patties is in the fridge cooling. Right now we're gonna focus on our beef filling mixture. What I have in the pan here, as you can see, is just ground beef. It's already been grounded up. And I'm just gonna show you guys everything that I put in here and everything I did to achieve this. What you want, taking another look at it, what you want is you want this moisture. You don't want just ground beef. You don't want it dry. You don't just want it to be mealy and ground, I should say. You want this consistency to where it's very moist. It's when you bite into it, it's gonna be a nice full bite. You can taste all of the flavors, you can taste all of the seasonings, but you want it to be well hydrated. That is a very important part to Jamaican patties. So let's go over what we put in here. So I did some salt and pepper, garlic. I did use a whole onion in this. I fine chopped it up very finely, small dice, and put it into the ground beef mixture once it had browned and those onions started to become translucent. Those are very important. I used thyme. I used some ground thyme. You can use fresh thyme. For this particular recipe, I prefer ground thyme. Some ginger, curry powder, Jamaican curry powder. I also use some cayenne red pepper. Normally with Caribbean cooking, they tend to use Scotch bonnets for most of their recipes. I actually had some. I forgot to add it in. I was like, oh, I'll just add in some cayenne, and it'll still bring that heat that we're looking for. Turmeric, ground turmeric, of course. Same thing we use for our crust. And then one of the most important things is going to be your allspice. You definitely need allspice in this mixture. So I let all of those things come together. I let it marinate in the meat. And then once everything had been cooked, everything had been browned, I added water, and then I also went in and added some panko breadcrumbs. These are seasoned, so they have herbs and also some cheese in here. But you need breadcrumbs in order to achieve the consistency that we're looking for, which is that hydrated, thick consistency. So add water and add breadcrumbs, and then you'll be on your way. All right, I'm gonna let this finish cooking down, and then go ahead and pull out the dough here in a few minutes, and then we'll get rolling out the dough and be able to put the filling into the actual crust. Okay, you guys, so I did go ahead and pull the patty dough out of the fridge. It's cooled off, it's chilled off, everything's formed. It's still malleable, so we should have no problem rolling it out. I did go ahead and dust my counter again. I have a rolling pin. I have just a knife, a paring knife here. This is going to help me cut out my shape. And I actually just have a simple bowl here. This is what I'm going to trace in the dough for my patty shape. And you'll see once I get started. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dust my pin. And get rolled. Now, when you are working with dough, you cannot be scared. You have to use a little bit of manpower to get what you're looking for. Okay, and you want to make sure you're picking up your dough and rotating it as you're rolling it out. 4 corners, let's pick it up, rotate it again, stretch it. Now we want these to be not super thin, but thin enough to be able to make as many as possible. So just roll this out, keep turning, keep flipping, so you're going from all different sizes so that it doesn't get stuck to the counter. And if this is your first time trying Jamaican patties, you are in for a treat. I remember my first few times having Jamaican patties. My dad would take us to this Jamaican man. He owns his own shop where he just makes Jamaican patties. It's him, he's by himself. He's been doing it for so many years. But he just makes Jamaican patties and sells them, and they are delicious. They are so good. And it's just one of those meals, one of those things that you don't forget. He'll sell them frozen. And that's the good thing about these is that you can freeze them and pop these in the oven, and in 15 minutes, they'll be ready to go. 15, 20 minutes. The oven is set at 325, so you want to make sure your oven is preheated just to get ready for these to go in there. All right, guys, we're looking good. We're looking real good. I like this thickness. It's not super thick. It's not super thin, but once this goes into the oven, those layers are gonna bake and they're gonna fluff up, and then when you bite into it, you'll be able to see everything. Yes, so this is the perfect thickness. I'm gonna stop right here because you don't want it to be too thin to where it leaks out. The filling leaks out. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut just a few. Get as many as I can out of this roll, out of this dough. So I'm only gonna be able to get 4, but that's okay. Gonna peel the extra off and just set it to the side for the time being. And then we're gonna get filling these. So let's get our filling. Okay, so we have our crust and we have our ground beef mixture. It smells so good. You definitely can smell all of those spices, the turmeric, the allspice, everything working together. The texture is perfect. And it's not super hot, it's kind of cooled down to where we're gonna be able to fill these up. I also have a fork here just for crimping the edges. Okay, so we're gonna start with the first one. I'm not doing it directly in the center because I don't want it to have to fold. I don't want the meat to have to be moved as much. So I'm gonna do it on one side, one half of the side, and I'm also not gonna do it to the edge, just because we wanna be able to close it. All right, and you might have to just switch your size depending on the shape of your crust. I'm doing preferably approximately the same amount for every patty, 2 scoops. I'm gonna take a little bit off there. Go in here. These are gonna be so good. And again, I'm gonna have to make another batch of dough, but it's gonna be worth it because I can just pop them into the freezer. I can fill them and then freeze them. Okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and flip these over. I might have to stretch out, pull a little bit on the crust just to make sure that it can go all the way over. You're gonna have to play with it. Perhaps should have did 1.5 because this is kind of stiff. All right, I'm gonna get the rest of these closed. Okay guys, so these are all closed. I did go ahead and crimp them with the fork just to make sure that they stay closed and to add a cute little design. Okay. So I'm gonna pop these into the oven. Again, the oven is at 325, probably 10 to 12 minutes. It's not gonna take super long, but once this crust becomes flaky and golden, more golden than they already are, you'll know that they're finished. I'm gonna set it on the bottom rack as to not burn or scorch the top of those. If you want, you can put an egg wash or butter on top, just depending on how you wanting them to come out in the end. While those are cooking, I am going to make another batch of dough for the rest of this ground beef because I want to freeze some of these. All right, I'll see you guys in a few. Okay guys, we are back. The patties are done baking. Here they are. They were in the oven probably for about 15 minutes. This is how they came out looking. Here's the bottom. We break it open. Let's look on the inside. It's a true test. Ooh. Flaky layers. It's still hot. So good. And I have sour cream. I like mine with a little sour cream. Oh man. Delicious. Okay. I am so glad that I was able, one, to have extra dough, two, to make extra patties. So these are going into the freezer. Maybe I don't feel like cooking one night. Maybe I don't feel like doing anything. These are perfect to just throw into the oven. And they're just worth all of the work. And it's just so much more rewarding when you do all of the work. You make the dough from scratch. You got all your spices, everything together. And you come out with something that, one, feeds the family, it feeds you. It's just good soul food. It's good soul food. That's what it is. So I'm gonna pop these into the freezer, but not before I finish my Jamaican patties. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. I hope that you can recreate this recipe and just share a picture or how it came out for you. It's just so good. The spices, everything. All right, have a good one. Bye.